Hi there, I'm Laura Tillinghast, and today I'm going to walk you through how I replace a sky in an image to add drama and depth. Unfortunately, it isn't as simple as just hitting the replace button and moving on. You've got to really examine where the light source is coming from in the two images to make sure you can bring them together in a way that makes sense to the viewer and is believable. So let's get started. Let's start by looking at what I like about this image and what I don't like and plan to change. So first, I do like the composition and how this walkway is leading the viewer down the middle of the photograph to the horizon, but that brings up right away the fact that the horizon line is not perfectly straight, and I can see that it's slightly skewed. So I'm going to fix that first by going up here to the crop tool, and I'm going to pull the corners in just a little so that I can rotate the edge, and there we go, and line it up so that the line there that's near the horizon is straight with the water, and I'm at the maximum amount of image, so that's looking better already. Now let's look at the overall tonal values of the image. One of the things I like about it is that you can see the setting sun on the right hand side creates this really strong lighting source, and that creates the really dramatic shadows that we see falling across the walkway, giving the image a lot more texture and pattern, making it more interesting. However, that strong light source so low in the sky is washing the image out quite a bit. So to remedy that, I'm going to go over to the AI Enhance section under Essentials, and I'm just going to drag this accent slider to the right until I get the desired look that I'm going for. And for this image, since it's so washed out, I think somewhere around halfway is going to look the best. Now we're really going to replace the sky quite a bit, but for an image where you're keeping the sky, play with this AI Sky Enhancer too, because if we weren't replacing the sky, look at how much it does to bring back the washed out quality while still maintaining that the light source is coming from this side and you still get that nice effect. So we'll leave this one about here because it's not as important for what we're going to do next. Now, after AI Enhance, if you have further fine-tuning you want to do, I go to the light section and the exposure looks fine. I do want to increase the contrast just a little bit. That brings the sand back. And then lowering the highlights makes the highlights a little less hot and just brings the image into a more balanced look. So already, just from those two changes, we can see that the image started here and is already looking a lot better and more interesting just from having correct tonal range. So now let's really transform this image by changing what's going on in the sky. So to do that, I'm going to go over and on the right hand side here under Creative, I'm going to choose AI Sky Replacement. Now when you click Sky Selection, you can see all of the options that are provided by Luminar, and there's quite a few to choose from. If you have your own image that you want to bring in to merge the sky from one photo with the rest of another, you can go to the bottom here and choose Load Custom. But since this is a blue sky on a bright sunny day, I think there are lots of options here to choose from that will work for this image, so I'm just going to use some of the preloaded ones. Here's Bright Blue Sky 1. That looks good, but it isn't the right color temperature for what's going on in the rest of the image. Let's try the next one. Bright Blue Sky 2, that looks really good. That's more in line with what I had in mind for the photo and also what it looked like the day I was shooting earlier in the day before the sun was so low on the horizon that it was blowing out what was going on. So there, we're done with the sky. Now let's talk about the overall lighting in the image. Now I mentioned before that one thing I liked about it was that you could see the direction of the light coming from the right hand side of the frame. Now when we fixed the washing out of the sky, we kind of took away that direction of light coming from that area. So I'm going to add that back in, and then we'll have the best of both worlds. We'll see where the light is coming from, but we'll also have vibrant color in the sky. So to do that, I go to in the creative area, I click on sun rays, and the first thing that this tool asks you to do is place where your light source is coming from. So we of course want it to match the shadows and the light source that's already in the image, and seeing that the shadows are coming this way and we knew where the light source was before we fixed the washed out sky, we want to put it up here around where the sun was already. Now I like to place it right at the edge of the frame, or sometimes I'll even place it off the side off the canvas itself and then just let the rays spill into the image. So first we're going to take the amount, and I don't, like if you go really far it's a little too intense. That works for some images, but for this one we don't have too much particulate in the sky, so I think something around 14 or 15 is going to look the best. Now the overall look, I usually leave that around here, and same, I don't touch these very much. I might increase penetration so that the light goes further into the image, but I do most of my adjusting under the advanced settings sections. Now, number of sun rays, as you can see, that creates a really neat effect, and when I have an image that has trees and light is piercing through the trees, this looks so good. With this, since there isn't anything like that, I'm actually going to bring the number of sun rays down to 1 or 2, and then that way you're really just getting a large wash of light instead of single sun rays. Now the sun radius itself, you can increase that. It'll start to increase the glow coming from that area, and I like that look, so I'm going to increase this to about 60. The glow radius itself, let's bring that up maybe all the way, and then the amount, let's increase that as well, and I'm just doing this and slowly moving the slider until it looks the way I want it to look. Now this was late in the day when the sun warms up quite a bit, so the sun rays themselves I think could be warmer. So I'm going to pull that down, and that really does look better to me because it matches the tonal temperature that was going on the walkway and the sand. So this is where it was before. Here it is after it's been warmed up a bit, so I'm going to leave that around 75. That looks really good. So to see what these effects look like, you can toggle this on and off. So here we were before, and it looks good, but now when you put the sun rays back, wow, there really is more going on in the image, and I feel like the shadows just make more sense because we see where the light is coming from even more. So now that we're done with that, let's collapse sun rays. And overall, I'm pretty happy with this image at this point. I think that it looks really good and has a lot more punch than it did when we started. But you can add a cherry onto the sundae, if you will, by really enhancing the sky even more with the Augmented Sky feature. Now here you can create something that isn't in the image at all. You can add a hot air balloon, more clouds, you can put a moon up into the sky if you're doing a fantasy image, or whatever. I think what makes the most sense in this case is birds. So let's try one of the birds options here. We'll check the third one. And it usually drops it centered in the image. So the first thing I like to do is click Place Object, and not only does that allow you to move where the object is in the sky, you can use these corner sliders to enlarge or minimize, and also turn and make the object make more sense to the context in your photo. So I'm going to go even a little larger than this and make it look like the birds are coming around this bluff and into the photograph. So when I'm happy with that, I click Place Object. That looks pretty good. Now the other thing to consider is this Relighting Slider. Now these birds are very much in silhouette, indicating that perhaps when this photo was taken, the light source was more behind the birds than to the side of them like they are, like it looks in this image. So I'm going to drag the Relight slider to the right to lighten those up a little bit and make it look like the light that's already going on in the image. Now let's go around the middle here. These birds are closer to the light source, so they're getting a little lighter, whereas these ones are further and they're staying darker, so it really does look pretty good. So now when you're done with that and you're happy, you can just collapse that selection, and I think you'd agree that there's a lot more drama and excitement in this image now than there was before. So looking at where we started and where we are now, I'm pretty happy with how this came out. So I encourage you to take any photo that might be slightly dull in the sky or has something redeemable about it, but there's something that needs transformation. Bring it into Luminar, and the sky is the limit, pun not intended, with what you can do to transform your images.